How does a human being simply vanish, and what can be read into the clues they leave behind? Let's put on our true crime thinking caps and take a crack at some of these.
She went missing under my watch, and I want her brought home under my watch.
Early in the wee hours of Valentine's Day 2000, 9-year-old Asha Degree left her home in North Carolina, seemingly under her own power. Sometime between around 3:45 and 4:15 a.m., two motorists saw a person answering Degree's description walking along the side of the road. When one of these people stopped to check on the girl, she bolted into the surrounding woods. If this was Degree, it was the last time anyone has reported seeing her. When Degree left, she took her school book bag packed with what a child might take for a short trip: clothing, her purse and wallet, and her house key, among other small items. In 2001, a construction worker found Degree's backpack in a rural area just beyond the original search perimeter. It had been wrapped in 2 trash bags and was found with a Dr. Seuss book and a New Kids on the Block t-shirt, both of which Degree's parents said were not hers.
Somebody had to pick her up in order for a book bag to be that far up the road.
While there have been occasional leads, including reports that she may have been seen entering a green 1970s model car, neither Asha nor any evidence of her fate have ever been found.
We still don't know no more than we did 15 years ago.
Well, maybe a little more. There was some action from law enforcement in 2024 and 2025, and if you read the usual places for cold cases, you might think this case is close to being solved, but officially it isn't. There's a $100,000 reward for information leading to answers.
I stood in the living room window and watched him back out of our driveway, and I was the last person to ever see him.
By all accounts, Granger Taylor was an eccentric near genius who loved repairing anything mechanical as well as smoking weed with his friends.
When he was 12, he built a car. It only took him like a year to build that thing and have it running and operational.
Fascinated by space, Taylor built a life-size model spaceship out of scavenged bits and pieces. Inside, he set up a TV and a sofa.
It was 2 satellite dishes turned face to face, and then he and his friends, they would hang out in there.
But his charming oddity turned dark when he started taking large doses of LSD and telling his parents he was in contact with extraterrestrials. One day in November 1980, he was gone, leaving behind only a note stating that he would be gone for 42 months on a voyage with aliens, and that instructions were in his will.
I am leaving behind all of my possessions to you, as I will no longer require the use of any.
No one heard anything from Taylor for 6 years until fragments of bone and clothing and, allegedly, of Taylor's distinctive Datsun pickup were found near the site of an apparent explosion in the woods. Allegedly, because there is some debate whether it was actually Taylor's truck. Taylor had been in the habit of carrying dynamite in it, and the coroner's report found that he died in an explosion. But whether it was suicide, an attempt to commune with aliens gone wrong, an accident, a case of faking his death, or even a real alien abduction remains a mystery.
I think that's where he is. He's out there in space somewhere.
On November 7, 1974, someone broke into a house in a wealthy area of London and attacked the 2 women inside with a section of pipe. Sandra Rivet, the household nanny, was killed. Her remains were found with the bloody pipe. Her employer, the Countess of Lucan, escaped and reported that her attacker was her estranged husband, the Earl of Lucan. The Earl and Countess, ironically nicknamed Lucky and Veronica, had been in the midst of a savage divorce and custody battle. Unfortunately for the nanny, Lady Lucan, and many subsequent commentators believe Lord Lucan struck the wrong woman from behind in the dark. As medics patched up the battered Countess, Lord Lucan fled to the home of his friend Susan Maxwell Scott. Once inside, he wrote 2 letters to his brother-in-law claiming to have found the dead Rivet and Lady Lucan under attack by a man and chased him away, only to have his wife accuse him of sending a hitman after her. Therefore, he was going to skedaddle until the fervor calmed down. He bid Susan farewell and slipped into the night forever. His wealthy friends are suspected of helping him flee, but his wife insisted he'd have chosen to take his own life rather than live on the run. His son won a court battle to inherit the title in 2016.
To some extent, it's been a bit of a jaunt, but at other times it's been very difficult.
In 1912, a 4-year-old Louisiana boy named Bobby Dunbar disappeared on a camping trip. It seemed most likely that he'd fallen into the lake and drowned, but the discovery of his hat some distance from the lake made some people suspect a kidnapping. The next year, Mississippi police arrested a vagrant who was traveling with a child that more or less looked like the missing boy. He said the child, whom he called Bruce Anderson, was the son of an acquaintance who had given him permission to travel with the boy for a year. The Dunbars went to Mississippi to see if the child was Bobby. Accounts differ as to exactly how things played out, but the consensus was a hesitant, probably based on his moles and scars. The parents' tepid reaction didn't convince everyone, but the child was proclaimed to be Bobby Dunbar and sent back to Louisiana with them. Julia Anderson, the alleged mother who'd let her boy hit the road with a drifter, later went to Louisiana to see Bobby, but couldn't pick him out of a lineup.
The boy deemed Bobby Dunbar grows up a Dunbar.
That Bobby Dunbar died in 1966. Once DNA testing became available, his descendants learned that he wasn't the original. He'd been born Bruce Anderson, and his mother had probably been unable to care for him and allowed a relative or someone else to foster him. At least that's one theory.
From the Anderson side, they believed that Bobby was kidnapped by the courts and awarded to the Dunbars.
The fate of the original Bobby Dunbar is still unknown. On February 9, 2004, Maura Murray emailed her nursing homework and reported to her teachers that there had been a death in her family. She then packed an overnight bag, withdrew nearly all the cash in her account, and stopped at a liquor store.
She purchases about $40 worth of liquor, and she recycles 79 cans.
After the liquor store, she left Amherst, Massachusetts, headed east.
Was she running from someone or running to someone?
That's a question that will likely never be answered. She had a phone call with her sister Kathleen earlier that week and reportedly was distraught after, but that was just one of a few peculiar events that led up to the night of February 9th. Maura drove off a snowy road in New Hampshire that early evening. She wasn't visibly injured, but the car was undrivable. A passing motorist offered help, which Murray declined. But when he got to his nearby home, he called authorities anyway. He knew there was no cell service at the spot where he'd seen Murray. His 911 call was made at 7:42, just a few minutes after he'd spoken with Murray, within 30 minutes at the most. But when police arrived at the disabled car at 7:46, Murray was gone. No confirmed trace of Murray has ever been found since.
They had no tracks at all from the accident scene into the woodlands.
According to her relatives, the story of the death in the family was false, and though they knew Murray enjoyed visiting New Hampshire, she had no clear reason for going that day. Murray had reportedly been having a rough time, getting in minor legal trouble, wrecking her previous car, and leaving work upset in the days before her disappearance. That was in relation to the phone call with her sister. She was about 2 hours north of Amherst when she drove off the road, and authorities know she checked her cell phone at 4:37 p.m. back in Amherst. There have been a number of theories, including suicide, being killed by a passerby or someone close to her, death from exposure on that snowy night, and even a deliberate disappearance so she could start over. But no evidence exists to confirm any of these. 15-year-old Evelyn Hartley was conscientious about calling her parents from her babysitting gigs to check in, so when no call came in the night of October 24, 1953, her father drove over to the house to check on her. The house was locked and nobody answered his knocking, so he wriggled in through a window. Evelyn was nowhere to be found. La Crosse, Wisconsin police would find a shoe and her glasses in the living room. Her other shoe was found in the basement, and there was a trail of blood on the ground outside. It was believed that she'd been abducted. The child she was watching was asleep still when her father arrived, completely unharmed. La Crosse turned itself inside out looking for Evelyn. Filling station attendants checked back seats and trunks for bloodstains. Graves were reopened to see if her remains had been buried in the loosened earth. Hundreds of Evelyn's male classmates were given polygraphs. A jacket and a pair of shoes with bloodstains and an unusual wear pattern on the soles were discovered near where the teenager had vanished, but provided no real leads.
We feel as if we've reached the height of this particular ladder and we can't go any higher.
There were a number of suspects, including a boy Evelyn's age whose mother reported him to police, but no evidence tied any of them to the crime. Even Ed Gein, the killer who inspired Psycho, was investigated but ruled out. Evelyn was 5'7", rather tall for a girl and especially for a 14-year-old. There's speculation that there may have been two intruders, but nothing's ever been specifically tied to any suspects. After a terrible couple of years that included a divorce, a failed business, and the death of his brother, Ben McDaniel moved in with his parents and was healing himself by spending a lot of time underwater. McDaniel was an experienced scuba diver, considering becoming an instructor as a second act, until his disappearance during or after a dive on August 18, 2010. Vortex Spring, where McDaniel disappeared, was so dangerous in places that a locked gate had been installed underwater to allow only very experienced divers into one part of the cave system. McDaniel was allowed access by staff, but wasn't experienced enough to have his own key. Two of McDaniel's air tanks were found abandoned near the cave mouth. Strangely, they were filled with plain air, not the specialized gas mix that experienced divers use. The cave was searched so thoroughly that a diver looking for McDaniel's remains died in the attempt, but no trace of McDaniel was found. One theory is that McDaniel was killed after surfacing, with the cave a red herring. Experienced divers have come to conflicting conclusions about whether a panicked or disoriented McDaniel could have gone into a part of the cave beyond the reach of search divers. And of course, some believe that he engineered his disappearance to start over somewhere else. His parents insist their son would never let them suffer that way.
A big question tonight: was the lost colony really lost?
Not really. I'll explain. The famous lost colony of Roanoke was actually the second attempt to found an English settlement on a coastal island off of what would eventually become North Carolina. The first, established in 1585 and mostly made up of soldiers, collapsed spectacularly, with the would-be colonists begging the ship bringing supplies to take them home. The garrison left behind to hold the territory in the absence of the colonists disappeared. So of course they tried again, with Commander John White leaving 100 or so colonists on the island in 1587.
You'd think they would have learned from their last expedition, but as they start to take inventory, they realize they're not going to have enough provisions to last through the winter.
White was on it. He volunteered to zip back to England for supplies like it was the corner store and be right back. Fortunately, war was about to break out with Spain and the Queen banned all shipping.
Meanwhile, at the colony, you can imagine their sinking feeling as 6 months go by, and then a year, and then 2 years.
By the time White returned 3 years later, the colony was gone.
The town isn't so much abandoned, it's been dismantled.
The only real clue to the colonists' fate was the word Croatoan carved into a tree. At the time, Croatoan was a name used for Hatteras Island, and White tried to look there, but rough weather and the loss of the ship's anchor forced him back to England before the island could be searched, so the lost colony remained just that. There are theories that the colonists were killed or absorbed by local native groups.
Considering how much archaeology that's been done, we have no skeletons. Where are they?
As far back as 1719, there are reports of gray-eyed natives and tribes that spoke some English. So are those the lost Roanoke colony? Well, yeah, duh. Practically every expert and archaeologist accepts that they were indeed absorbed into one of the local tribes, but that's not going to stop anyone from making videos like this and mentioning them. Aeryn Gillern had a life many would have envied and few would have willingly walked away from. An American living in Austria working for the United Nations, Gillern had been the runner-up in the Mr. Gay Universe pageant. He was a devout Catholic who was close to his mother, and he just had his partner over to spend the weekend. Gillern seemed to have a full life when he vanished the night of October 29, 2007. He'd even made Rice Krispie treats for his coworkers, which were found on the counter in his apartment. Gillern's homosexuality was a problem for Austrian police, who initially tried to ignore the case because it involved a foreigner. They told his mother, a retired police officer, that Gillern had been HIV positive, though he wasn't, and that his diagnosis was probably why he'd leapt into the Danube River.
Because he's gay, he's HIV positive, and gays who are all these things commit spontaneous suicide all the time.
This was all pure invention on the part of the police, perhaps stemming from complaints Gillern had made about bias and abuse he'd suffered from Vienna policemen.
My first impressions of them were not good. They wouldn't look at me. There was no eye contact whatsoever.
Gillern had visited a gay sauna the night of his disappearance. There are conflicting accounts about a fight there that evening. The most salacious version described Gillern fleeing in only a towel. His clothes, complete with negative HIV test results in his pockets, were eventually recovered from the sauna, but no sign of Gillern himself has ever surfaced. The Austrian police admitted no fault in their investigation.